Hey guys!
Hi guys! You're watching Big Wins, a show about women in sports by two women in sports. I'm Reagan.
And I'm Ella. What's up, guys?
I know, we're back. I know, finally. Took us long enough.
Yeah, I know. Things get busy at this time of year, so we've just kind of been out of it. But we're back. We're ready to go with our Rays and L's if you want to start.
Our Rays, I'm just going to remind you, Ray is like our high of the week, L is like our low of the week. Ray for the week, I get my ring this weekend. I'm very excited. My parents are coming into town, and it's the spring game. It's going to be a busy, busy weekend, so I'm really excited about that. My L, it's just been really crazy with school, like finals, projects, exams. It's kind of cracking down. We have about 3 weeks left, so I'm getting a little bit nervous. So that would probably be my L.
Yeah.
What are you?
Honestly, I feel like pretty similar. I'm getting my ring this weekend too. I get to work the spring game, which is really fun. And then I have a Megan Maroney concert, which is really fun.
That is super fun.
And it's in Athens, so it's like cool because she's from there. Anyways, and then my L, just like there's just a lot going on, and having to balance it with career building and like academic success, things like that, internships. It's all just a lot, and I would say that it gets a lot, but we're not going to talk about that anymore.
Yeah, here we are.
We're going to talk about all things women's March Madness, because I feel like all we ever hear about is the men, and I want to talk about the women today. So just like as a little recap, the Final Four right now is South Carolina, no shocker there, Texas, UCLA, and UConn. And then the championship game is going to be Sunday, April 6th at 3 p.m. And then we were just talking about this. I thought it was really interesting. I wanted to point out that like commonly speaking, in a lot of Final Fours we've had for women, they've been like 1 and 2 seeds. And when you're making your bracket, a lot of times people will be like, for men's tournaments, people will be like, oh, like you can't pick an all 1 seed Final Four, like that's so unlikely. But this year we're experiencing the first men's tournament with all 1 seeds in the Final Four since 2008, where like in contrast, we usually see 1 or 2 seeds, with the exception of the last time that this happened, it happened outside of 1 and 2 seeds, the Final Four, was 2018, when an 8 seed and a 3 seed got into the Final Four. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Kind of shows the more of the consistent side of women's basketball, with teams being like so dominant on the women's side, and the men's side being a little bit more madness in their tournament.
I think what I was like researching the other day, and a CBS reporter was talking about it, that it's all really has to do with NIL and the transfer portal, because these good teams are getting great, and then these okay teams are getting worse. It's just because people are going all over this place. And like, speaking for men's, because all number 1 seeds are in the Final Four, these teams are amazing because all of the best players are transferring to these teams, and because of all the NIL deals, because of all the money that these big Power 5 schools have, it's like they're just getting great, and they're going to stay great just because everyone's going to start transferring there. So I think that kind of shows why there hasn't been that much madness in this March Madness. Well, yeah, we're not talking about Clemson because that was not okay, and that was whatever.
To kind of go back before we move forward, what's your predictions for the Final Four for the women's?
For women's, I would love to see a South Carolina UConn matchup, just because Paige Buckers is my favorite player of all time. I don't know if you've seen her like press conferences.
Yeah, I love her. Were they wearing like a wig the other day?
Yeah, they're like doing like the coach's wig. It was great. They had like glasses on. They're just so funny. The whole UConn starting 5 is so funny, and especially in their press conferences, really makes me want to root for them. And I just love her. I think she's an amazing player. So I'd really like to see a South Carolina UConn matchup. With that being said, I don't really know who would win that matchup.
I think it'd be a good game. I think that for me, I would rather anyone else be in the Final Four than South Carolina, so I'm going to go Texas UConn, but I also really want to see a UConn national championship.
Oh yeah.
I love Paige. I think since high school she's been grinding with the ACL injury she had, then coming back, still being a very dominant player in the media and on the court. I think that she deserves it, and I think she's going to be one of those players that goes into the league and continues to change the outlook that we have on women's basketball. So.
I agree. She's definitely going to go to the WNBA next year and kill it. I want to see her up against Caitlin Clark again, up against Angel Reese again. So it will be really interesting to see where she ends up, but I'm excited to see that. Kind of to touch on other players, maybe outside of the Final Four. First off, starting with W.I.N.S. She goes to USC, an amazing, I think she's was number one in the collegiate women's basketball space, but unfortunately she suffered a knee injury. They're thinking it's her ACL, which is very, very disappointing because this was in the first quarter of the second round of the NCAA tournament. She went down. There's so many headlines about it, and it's really, really sad to see her go down.
I would say too, like especially because we've talked about in other shows we've had about how positive media has been covering her and how people have been saying she's going to be the next Caitlin Clark. She's going to maybe potentially be better and have better
she's better stats
better
right
stats
now.
From her freshman to senior year. I think it's really hard with just female athletes in general. ACL is such a bigger injury for women than it is for men. Unfortunately, it's a lot more common as well. And that recovery, sometimes we see players come back that look very different than they did before that injury just because it's so massive. And so I'm just really hoping that she takes the time she needs to come back. I'm sure she's going to get great physical therapy, surgery, everything. She's going to get top of the notch medical treatment. But I just hope that when she comes back, that doesn't hinder her any further than it has this season, which on the bright side, I mean, I know it was in the tournament, but she did get to play the entire season, and we did get to see how awesome she was in the whole season. So I'm grateful for that, and I'm grateful that she put her name on the map this year for sure.
I totally agree, and I hope it doesn't hinder her chances for the draft coming up, because I know she wanted to go to the draft, and we will see. I mean, another player that we do need to talk about, though, is Hailey Van Lith from TCU. She's been to 3 different schools throughout her college career, being Louisville, LSU, and TCU, and she really made a name for herself at all 3 of those schools because she took 3 different teams to the Elite 8. She was a leader on all 3 of those teams. I loved seeing her and Sedona at TCU together. That was a great pairing for their starting 5. And she's just a great guard that really just took all the 3 of those teams to at least the Elite 8, which was great.
She had 5 seasons spanning over her career. I think a big thing to note here is I think a big reason why she is so big, alongside of the fact that she's a really dynamic guard and she has the stats to back it up, I think she's huge in NIL. I think that she is a huge a huge person and a huge factor for why we've seen so many women pop up randomly in media, and I think that that's going to go into the league as well. I think she's going to continue to expand the name for the WNBA, which as women we love to see that, and I'm excited to see another big name do big things for women's sports.
I totally agree. I think she just has a big personality, in the way that she's all over NIL deals and all over brands is very, very cool to see, just because she wasn't a huge name until she went to LSU, I don't think, and then she really made a name for herself there, and then ultimately transferring to TCU this year I think was a great decision for her, and then led that team to the Elite 8. Unfortunately, they just lost to Texas, which was an unfortunate loss, but I'm proud of her and I'm excited to see what she does.
Yeah, she's one of those players that I love watching, any kind of athlete that has like grit. Like they get up and they have like a different kind of fire underneath them when they play, and I think with her, like, she wasn't taking no for an answer, and she would make things happen on her team, which is really cool.
I totally agree. That's kind of all we have for Women's March Madness. I'm excited to see the Final Four and end up the championship game. That is on April 6th. So
3 o'clock.
What's today? The 2nd?
That's Sunday.
So in about 4 days, we'll see that. But another thing we wanted to talk about today is networking, because we are both looking for internships. We're both juniors, going to be out into the real world pretty soon, and sports, especially women in sports, is all about who you know.
Yes.
It is about your resume. You got to back it up with your resume, but at the same time, you need to know someone to get an interview. And I've learned that the hard way, for sure.
Yeah, I think to add off of her thing, the biggest thing I've learned is don't be afraid to go for informational interviews just to learn, because I think not only knowing people in the industry is a big thing, but creating relationships with people is a big thing, because people will want to do something for you when they remember who you are and you make an impact on them. So like one of the ways that I have made that happen, and I'm sure you have ways as well that you have, is cold emailing. It's scary to do. At first, I'll tell you guys a funny story, because don't do this, but whenever I started getting into sports, I was like, I'm gonna write a draft email and I'm gonna send it to as many people as I possibly can and see who responds. Some did respond, but let me tell you why that's a bad idea. There is no personal connection to the person you're reaching out to. You're not putting any effort into knowing what they do, appreciating what they do. So when they see this email that's basically begging for an internship, they're like, it just kind of looks like you're using them as a stepping stone. Whereas like writing an email that says like, hey, pulling on something like maybe a connection you have on LinkedIn that's mutual, or pulling on the fact that there's a woman in sports, you're gonna be a woman in sports. A woman, what am I doing with words? Woman in sports. That touching that personal connection, they're more apt to give you the time of day to speak to them. And then also just putting in your email something that makes it convenient for them, whether that's like, hey, during like lunch hours, can we do like a 30-minute Zoom? Something that's not gonna be too time consuming for them, because they're helping you, and anything that's the more convenient you can make it, the more likely it's gonna happen. At least in my experience, the biggest thing that I would say you want to have going into those cold interview, or those interviews created by cold emails, have a list of questions and don't make it seem like you're only using them for an internship. At the end of every single one of my informational interviews I've had, I've just said, hey, if you hear anything or you think of anyone that I might get along with, don't be afraid to email me. I'd love to continue this connection. I've really appreciated your time. You just want to be overly grateful and less expectant of something coming out of it.
I totally agree. I think I have done so many of these calls, so many of these emails, and I've reached out to literally everyone and anyone on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is my best friend, and I reach out to everyone. And another thing that I think you should guys. Whoa, I'm like, my words
are... It's both of us. We had a hard class.
Gosh. Another thing I think you should always do is when you're cold emailing, add your resume.
Oh, yeah.
Because it really just kind of connects your name and your email to what you've done and your experience, because if they show, oh my gosh, you worked at Clemson Athletics, I know someone that worked at Clemson Athletics, then they can create that connection for you that maybe you didn't start. And one person always told me, like, you're not being annoying, I promise you. People are willing to help. And I think a lot of people in the sports industry have been where we are right now, and so they understand how hard it is to kind of get your foot in the door when it comes to the sports industry. So don't be afraid to reach out. You're not being annoying, and the worst they could say is no. The worst is they don't respond. Okay, and on to the next. And then you email someone else, and hopefully that they respond.
I meant to say something. I didn't cut you off. But something's really helpful that somebody that was in one of the NFL teams staffs. They said that if you can figure out an organization's email setting, like their format. For example, ours is at clemson.edu. You figure out their first and last name, you can find one email, and the likelihood of it being identical to every other person on their staff directory, only changing like first and last name format, is really high for it to all be the same. So once you have one email, you also have as many other emails as you can access. That's something I've used in a lot of settings, because I had no idea, and that was something that was really hard for me when I was looking through these staff directories and seeing numbers. Like, I'm not gonna call these people and be like, help. Like, that's just not me. That's not how I want to connect. I want to further connect on an open setting, like a meeting or whatever, or something that is convenient for them. And then additionally, like, really emphasize that connection. So if you're a Clemson alumni, or you're a whatever alumni, a South Carolina alumni, whatever, and then you find someone, or student, undergraduate student, you find someone that is also that, and they're gonna be like, oh my gosh, I love Clemson. I went to Clemson. You go to Clemson? Let's be friends.
Yeah. Let me help you.
Right. So.
No, another thing that I wanted to touch on is kind of good questions to ask when you're on these calls, when you're on these cold emails, because I've had someone tell me that I asked the right questions, and now I'm in contact with them. Hopefully they're getting me an internship this summer. But just because I asked the right questions, they say a lot of people have called him and be like, okay, how do I get an internship? Oh, can I meet the players? Oh, can I, just asking these questions that they don't want to hear, like you said, that you don't really get a personal connection with them. So a couple questions that I normally like to ask is, tell me your story. So I think I always start with them, because what you're doing for these informational calls is you want to learn. You're like wanting to get to know them. You're wanting to learn. That's basically it. You're not asking for an internship yet. You're wanting to learn about them.
So, I do the same thing, both of us.
So you just always ask them their story. How did they get there? Where did they go to school? Trying to build a connection.
I say, what's your why? A lot of times, like, why do you do this? And I also say, like, if this is your dream role, how did you get here, and why is it your dream role?
Mm-hmm. So. Or was it always your dream role?
Yeah.
Another thing I like to ask, which is kind of niche, is that, like, whatever job they're doing, like, is there something you're working on that you could tell me? Sometimes they can't tell me, of like NDA, like, I don't know. Sometimes there's projects that they can't tell me, but is there something that you're working on that you're really excited about? And why are you excited about it?
That's good.
I think that's kind of a cool one, to get to know what they do on the day-to-day basis, what they're working on internally with their company or team or whatever. But then I also ask, like, what's some advice for me, because this is such a competitive industry to get your foot in the door, like I said. So what's your advice? Like, how should I stand out, and what are some key skills that you look for in candidates to make sure I stand out when I'm applying places?
Yeah.
And I feel like they really like that, I think.
I think it's important too to structure your questions based on what's important to you.
Yeah.
One thing I always ask, because we have such a good culture here at Clemson and within our athletic departments, a lot of other schools don't have that same culture. And so one of the things I've asked people, I've been looking into graduate assistantships and just kind of asking, like, how are you able to find a culture that meets all of your needs and makes you feel valued? And that's something that people usually are kind of like, and then they're just like, you just know. And I'm like, well, how'd you know? And honestly, like, a big thing for me is, you don't know what you're gonna get out of these interviews, but don't be discouraged, because I've had interviews where someone's just been like, you know what, you're really impressive, you're gonna do big things, and nothing else has come out of it. And I needed to hear that so bad that it helped me and pushed me to go further in my networking. So
totally.
Just make it personable to you and what you care about.
I know, I think you should just never get discouraged. You're gonna be rejected so many times, and I've learned that more than ever this past semester with internships and everything. I've been rejected probably 100 times, and that's totally fine, whether that be from an internship application, whether that be from a networking call, whether that they don't even answer. You're gonna get rejected.
Yeah.
It just takes that one time to be successful, and I'm waiting for that one time.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
And that's okay. We're still in college, we're still juniors, we still don't know it all. And so I'm excited to see where it takes for the both of us.
Yeah, me too.
But is that all we have for
That's
today?
all we have for today.
All right. This is Big Wins, a show about women in sports by two women in sports.
Bye, y'all.
Bye, guys.